Hi everybody, how are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. The subject I need to talk to you about today is a very, very difficult one, and I'm going to get right to it. I'm not going to waste time with any other chit-chat. I was inspired to talk about this because of something that just happened in my life recently. I had somebody get very upset with me because I did not go to their house after an illness. Although I didn't go, I did call and I did text every day and night to make sure that person was all right. But the problem I'm going to talk about is one of the reasons. There was two reasons I didn't go. One, I didn't want to expose that person to anything more than necessary because of the shape that person was in. I was afraid I could bring something into the home to make that person sicker. The other one was what I'm going to talk about to you right now. And that is, I have always, in my entire life, had a problem in terms of following directions, like on a map type of thing. You might be thinking, what is she talking about? What I'm talking about is, if I don't know the area that I'm in, I get completely confused and lost. And it causes me almost like a panic attack with the fear of getting lost. I don't know where that comes from. The only thing I can associate that with is as a child, as a young girl, when I would walk to and from school. Always, we walked to and from school back then. I'm 69, and we walked, no matter what the weather, and that was just the way it was. And there were times, imagine this little girl in second, first, third, fourth grade, walking home, going to school, and having to stop and think, where am I? Where am I? What block am I on? It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. And it has affected me my entire life. And it got to a point several years ago that after I got divorced, it was a real problem. While I was married, no problem, because my husband would drive us everywhere, so there was no issues, there was no fears. But after the divorce, and I knew I had to drive everywhere by myself, it did become an issue. And you might think, well, we have GPS now, no need to worry about that. No, you may not understand what I'm talking about. I went to a doctor about it several years ago. It was after my divorce, because I actually became suicidal over this. I felt like a burden. I felt like I felt stupid. I felt dumb. I felt like what's wrong with me? I went to this doctor and finally opened up and told her about it, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, darling, you're not the only one who suffers from this. There are tons of people who have this situation." That was the first time in my life I felt like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't believe you. I don't know anybody that has this issue. And she said, how many people know you have it? And I said, well, none. And she goes, okay, there you go. You could have talked to 100 people that have it and you wouldn't know. And it's a weird situation. She explained it to me that my brain has a problem with mapping. If that makes sense to you, it has a problem with mapping. I'm finding every other area of my brain, but when it comes to like mapping, like, okay, somebody, for instance, if I'm in an area that I don't know, it's very hard for my brain to comprehend, go this way, go that way, go this way. If I'm in an area that I know, no problems. I can drive anywhere. But when I get into a situation where I don't know the streets, I don't know the main streets, I don't know anything, I panic, I feel lost, I get scared. And you might think, well, that's crazy. And I hope those of you listening to this can be kind and understanding, because I know there's the jerks out there who will want to say something cruel. But this is a very serious situation. It affected me my whole life. It made me feel, like I said, I felt dumb. I felt stupid. I felt like, what's wrong with me? You know, what's wrong with my brain? And to this day, it's weird how it works. Like the area I live in now, I can find my way anywhere if necessary, simply because I know the main streets. And if I have to go into an area that I've never been in this part of this side of town, I can just look on the map and study it, literally study it, and say, oh, okay, it's off of Wyoming. Oh, it's off of Central. Oh, it's off. I can do that because I've lived in this area for decades. But three of my kids have moved to the west side. And the first time that my daughter moved out there, and she wanted me to come visit her, I was terrified. I was beyond terrified at the thought of getting lost. Don't know where that comes from, guys, but like I said, I attribute it to the childhood. Maybe it's some kind of a PTSD thing from childhood where I was always scared walking to and from school because I would get confused. And I asked this doctor, why do I get confused? And she said, your brain just has trouble mapping things. And so when my daughter asked me to come see her, I was beyond terrified. But she gave me specific, I mean, down to what side of the road to drive on to get there. And I was able to find it. But even to this day, and that was several years ago that she moved to that side of town, even to this day, the thought of driving that far, it causes me stress. It causes me, I don't know how to explain it. No, it's not dementia. It's not agoraphobia. This is going back to childhood. It's this weird thing in my brain that's like, okay, remember this street, remember that. I get scared. That's the only way I can put it, is I get scared. And it terrifies me to the point that I have not driven to my daughter's house in well over a year, partially because of the anxiety. If I sound kind of shaky right now, I'm actually kind of anxious even talking to you about this. I had a panic attack in 2022 that left me with chronic anxiety that was so severe I had to be medicated. I haven't been on the medication since February, but I'm still dealing a little bit with the anxiety. And I have also the fear that if I wreck my car, I'm not going to have a car because I can only carry liability on it. I can't afford to buy a new car right now. So I have this anxiety of driving too far, because the more you drive, of course, the more chance you have of getting into some kind of accident. So I have these fears, and I can't help them. I've tried, I've even gotten homeopathic treatment, what have you. But it is a deep ingrained suffering that I have been through my whole life. And at this point right now, when this person was upset that I didn't go over, it hurt me deeply, because I knew in my heart that the thought of driving to that person's house terrified me. I thought, I don't know that side, I don't know anything about it, I don't know any, and it's a strange thing. I don't know how to describe it to you. But the thought of getting into an area that I don't know sets me up for a weird kind of panic and a fear of being, like I said, of being lost. Now, if someone else is driving into an area that I don't know anything about, I don't have an issue, because they know, I guess they know what they're doing, so I don't have to worry about it. It's like, well, they're driving, they know what they're doing. I don't worry about it. But if I have to, the fear and the terror comes up. And I did mention to my youngest son one time that I have an issue. This is how bad it can get. I can go to a doctor or a dentist, they take me to the treatment room, they're done. I walk out that treatment room door, and sometimes I can be like, oh crap, which direction do I go in? Literally, guys, I can literally be like, which direction do I go in? And thankfully, like with my dentist, the assistant, she'll say, you're done. She'll say, come on, and I'll follow behind her to go out. And I had told my son about this, and one time when he went with me to either a doctor or a dentist, I don't know which, can't remember which, but when I was done with my treatment, I stepped out and I was like, oh crap, which direction do I go in? Luckily, he was at the end of the hall going like this, so I guess he remembered what I had said because he was going like this, you know, like, come this way over here. And I was like, oh, thank God. So I just went straight to him, down the hallway, out we left, you know. That's how bad it can be sometimes. My brain literally has like this little glitch thing where I can go into a doctor's office, they take me to the room, and when I turn around, I'm like, which way did we come? That fast. Within that amount of time, I can literally be like, which direction did she bring me in? And it's a terrifying feeling. And I wanted to discuss this because I know there are some of you who may have the same issue, and it's almost disabling in a lot of ways. Now, on my side of town, not the west side or the very northwest side, on my side of town, the northeast, even the southeast where I grew up, I have that mapped in my brain because I grew up there. I lived there for years. So I can go to that southeast part of town and still remember, you know, where, of course, where my homes were, where the schools were, where all that was. I remember all that because I lived there. So it was mapped in my brain. And that's how she explained it. She said, yes, you can remember all those because you were there for so long that your brain did map it. But when you hit something new, it struggles to just map that. And those of you that say, well, GPS, well, yeah, GPS, you have to be, while you're driving, you have to look at it, right? You're driving, and oh, you look at it, and you look at it. I can't do that. I absolutely, I don't know how to explain this. This is very difficult. This is really difficult for me to share with you because I spent my life being very embarrassed by this. Very embarrassed by this. And I've never even gotten into solid discussion with this, about this with any of my family, because I've been too embarrassed. And at 69 years old, I finally decided, you know what? After this person made me feel that I had done wrong by not going to their house, I thought, you know what? It's time I come out with this. Even though I had mentioned it slightly to one of my sons. And then another son who moved to the west side, one time when he said, well, you need to come and see the house, you know, this and that. I brushed it off quickly by just saying, well, I don't know the area, so I'd have a hard time finding it. And then I just changed the subject because I didn't want to make up some crazy excuse. I just said, I'll have trouble finding it, so, you know. So the times I have been to his house, one of my other sons took me, or, it's been one of my other sons that took me. And I know it may sound strange to you all. It might sound like, oh, you know, I think, oh, she's just making an excuse. No, it's not an excuse. It's a very difficult thing. When my kids lived on this side of the town, I had no problem going to their place. No problem at all. They'd move to a new apartment, whatever. No problem finding it. No problem at all. Because all of the area I live in is mapped in my brain to where they mention a street and I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that's off of. Or if I don't, I can look at the map. I can get online and pull up a map and, oh, yeah, it's off that street. I know it. And so I was able to find their places with no problems. And one of my sons, he lived in very many different areas in this side of town, and I had no problem finding it, going to it, because all of the area is mapped in here. But you throw me in a new place, and I get scared. I actually get scared I'm going to get lost. And it's so bad, guys, that one time my son-in-law wanted me and one of my sons to go to classes to become certified to be a carrier, you know, a gun, to be licensed to carry a gun. My son and I were on our way there. It was to a part of town I didn't know, and the traffic backed up so severely that we were like, we're never going to get there on time. And my daughter was telling my son on his cell phone, well, tell her to, go this way or that way. I couldn't do it. I freaked out. It was like, I don't know that street. I don't know that area. I don't know what direction we're going to be going in. Oh my God. So I just turned off and came back in the direction of the area that I live in. And no, it's not agoraphobia. If it was agoraphobia, I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't. And at the time that this person wanted me to be there, I was struggling with, I guess, a certain degree of agoraphobia because of the anxiety I was going through. My daughter had to take me to see my son when he was getting chemo because I was so stressed from what was happening to him. I couldn't function. I wasn't functioning well. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. I couldn't focus. My brain was fried from the worry. So luckily my daughter was good enough and kind enough to come and pick me up every time she took me to where he was getting his treatment. And it was a place that I could have easily driven to if I had been in a normal frame of mind. But I was so stressed that I couldn't see myself focusing to be able to drive that distance, which I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I couldn't. As we would be driving there, all I could focus on was what I was going to, which was my son getting chemo, and my brain just wouldn't function right, if that makes sense. But it just wouldn't. And so she would take me to, and we would both take turns being with him, and then she would drive me home. If it weren't for that, I don't know that I'd have been able to go because I couldn't drive myself. But what I want to talk to you about is what this does to you as a human being. It limits you in the way that if you have to go to a really far distance, it sets you up for panic and fear. Like a cousin of mine, she just moved into town not that long ago, but she lives way far from where I live. And the first time she asked me, oh, you need to come see the house, I panicked. I thought, I don't know that area, I don't know anything about it, and I started getting that panicky feeling of not knowing my way around there. So my son came and picked me up and we went. No problem. No problem at all the first time we went to her house. It was for her birthday. It was no problem. I was like, oh, okay, So it's this strange thing that my brain, when I have to get into a new place, it's like it can't, I don't know how to explain that. It's like it can't come together and say, okay, go this way, go this way, go that way. I get confused. I get absolutely confused. And it's terrifying. It's not just driving. Imagine walking, like even going into a hospital. I had to visit one of my sons in the hospital. Excuse me. It's been a couple times with a few different occasions. But when I had to go by myself, my daughter dropped me off and she said, go down this hallway and there's arrows pointing to where you need to go. Thank God for those arrows. Those arrows were going in the direction I needed to go and underneath showing what I was headed to. So I was able to find myself, guide myself into the hospital to go into the room he was in. That's how bad it can be sometimes, and it's a terrible affliction to have. Even when my cousin's husband was here, actually he was in Rio Rancho in the hospital, I called my son to get me for us to go visit him, and he wanted to see him too. The whole way that we were there, I could not figure out, the whole way we were there, I thought, why can't I map this and just remember this? I don't know what that is, guys, and it's a terrible thing to have. It's a terrible, terrible thing to have. I even went to Santa Fe once, back in the 70s. I had a little son then, and I thought, I'm going to go visit my sister. She lived in Santa Fe at the time. And I get out there. I was able to remember how to get out onto the main, highway to get there. But then, when I got when I was on the highway, a guy started following me. It was just me and him, no one else on that highway. It was weird, just me and him. He started following me in a way that I knew wasn't normal. He'd go on the side of me, this side of me, he'd get right in front of me, and I thought, oh my God, this guy is playing some kind of weird game. So I got terrified. I thought, I'm alone on this road with this person. So back then, I don't know what the road to Santa Fe is like now, it's been so long, but there was like a dirt median, you know, and this traffic going this way, this traffic going that way. Well, when I saw what he was doing, I just went across that median, and luckily I didn't damage my car, but I got into the lane going the opposite, and luckily he kept going. Well, then I came back over that median. I went and drove backwards, you know, where I came from a long time, or quite a while, and then came back and I thought, no, I got to go to my sister's. Well, I get into close to Santa Fe, and then I was like, I don't remember where I'm supposed to go. So I did remember how to get to my aunt and uncle's and my grandmother's little place, and I drove up there, and my uncle gave me directions. My Uncle Archie, he gave me directions. He explained clearly to me how to get there, and it was terrifying. And I made it, but then I stayed at my sister's for several days because I didn't want to drive home. I was like, God, I'm going to not know where I'm at again. So guys, it's almost like some kind of like a birth defect I was born with. That's the only way I can explain it, because it's been with me since childhood, been with me since I was a little girl. And I would get confused walking home, something I did every day. Once I got into, you know, 6th grade, and then we moved to I was in 4th grade when we moved to Santa Fe, and I had to start a new school, and I had to walk. Oh my God, I can't tell you the number of times I just got lost and confused and would end up being late. It was terrible. It was terrible. I'd be like, okay, I know I'm on this street. Wait, oh, okay, yeah, that street. Okay, I'm supposed to go down that street. And I'd look around to see if anything looked familiar, to try to map it in my brain. And even after living there for a couple of years, I would still have problems walking to and from a new school. It was weird, guys. It was a very strange experience. And I still suffer with that. And there's nothing that can be done about it. It's just how my brain works, like my doctor explained. Like she said, more people than you know have this issue of trouble with direction. They have a lot of trouble with direction. And there's nothing I can do about it, because it has also caused me a lot of anxiety. It has caused me a lot of stress to think of having to go into a place that I'm not familiar with. I don't know what this intense fear of getting lost is about. And it is intense. It's so intense that if I feel I'm going to get lost, I start getting extremely panicked. And it's a terrible, terrible feeling. And I know there are people out there who think, oh, that's just an excuse. No, it's not. It's a horrible thing to contend with and to deal with. That feeling, I don't know what it comes from. The only thing I can think of is of it, some kind of, like I said before, something from childhood, where I was always terrified that I was lost. I was just this little girl, a little girl, you know, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, 4th grade, walking to and from school alone, and then getting confused and lost where I was. That's all I can think of that this fear of loss comes from. My doctor even jokingly said, I think, because she believes in past lives, and she said, I think in your past life you had a pretty tough time. You had a pretty rough life, and there's a lot of fears locked in there from your past life. That's why I can't even look at the ocean. I hate the ocean, guys. To me, there is nothing more awful than the ocean. I can just look at a picture or something on TV with the ocean, and I actually feel my stomach turn and get a nauseous feeling. And I'm not exaggerating. I can actually look at the ocean. I can look just at a picture of the ocean, and I get this almost sick feeling inside. Excuse me while I adjust. I get this almost sick feeling inside And she said, I really believe something happened to you in the ocean at some point, because there'd be no reason for you to have fear since you've never had anything in this life happen to you concerning the ocean. Because to me, the ocean is like a death call, if that makes any sense. And it is. When I see the ocean, the waves are, to me, the waves are like saying, come to me, come on in, just come on in, I'll get you. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what it feels like to me. And she says, I believe that you, somewhere in your past life, an issue with the ocean and an issue with getting lost. And that's why you have this problem, because it is a severe problem, guys. Like I said, it got to the point several years ago that I wanted to end it. I wanted to end it, and I even had the plan. And then I thought, no, I'm going to talk to her. And then when she said, you're not the only person who experiences this, I can't even tell you what it did for me in terms of feeling like I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. And she said, no, you're not. This is very common with a lot of people. So I wanted to share this with you because I spent all day yesterday feeling really terrible that I didn't visit this person on my own without bothering somebody and being a pest, take me, pick me up, drive me, what have you. I felt terrible. But I know in my heart that it had nothing to do with not wanting to go on my own. But I couldn't get up the nerve to drive to that side of town that I knew nothing about. I was scared. And I'm not ashamed to say it anymore, because it is a real issue. And I know some of you out there, I'm sure you have the issue too. I was watching a video of somebody that I follow. It's a man and a woman who sell whatever. Anyway, they have to go show you the properties. And he told her to drive. He drove up to a certain spot in the mountains and he told her, I need you to drive from here over here so I can walk up to this area. She was in a panic. She was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what to follow. She goes, I can't do this. And he was like, you'll be all right. Just do this, do that. She was like, oh my God. She was panicking. And when I heard her, I thought, wow, that would have been me in the mountains. Someone telling me to go drive in an area I know nothing about. And she was in a panic. So I just wanted to discuss this with you guys because I know I'm sure there are some of you out there who have issues with direction, with driving in places you're not familiar with. And like I said, I know a lot of you will say, well, we have GPS now, there's no excuse. Well, when you have what I have, even having to look at a GPS while I'm driving, it's like, oh wait, I don't know, oh shoot, I don't know that street. Where is that street? Oh my God, okay, it's telling me to turn this way. Do I go, is that the right, which side of the road should I be on? That's what my brain does when I get in an area that I'm not aware of. That I don't know, rather, that I just don't know anything about. And when I hear other people driving to other states and stuff, I'm like, I can't do that. I could never do that. Like, my daughter drove her son, my grandson, to Colorado, just she and him, for him to see a concert. I'm like, I admire that so much because I could never do that. I wouldn't know where to begin to go. I wouldn't know what freeway, highway, whatever. I'm just like, my brain has not mapped these type of things. And when I hear people talk about driving, oh, I had to drive from this city to that city, it amazes me because I don't have that ability. And it's embarrassing. It's always been embarrassing to me to admit this. But I just wanted to share that with you because it was a very difficult day for me yesterday in a lot of ways, for a lot of reasons. And I'm trying to come to terms with that I have this fear. And people may hate me because I don't go to their house. But I can't do anything about it right now. Especially that I am still experiencing anxiety from that panic attack a long time ago, a year ago. I'm still suffering from anxiety, and the thought of driving somewhere intensifies that anxiety. Driving somewhere I'm not familiar with, I should say. So anyway, guys, I'm running out of time here, so you guys take care. And I hope you understand, and I hope you're kind and understanding about what I've been through my whole life and am going through now.